belief in the work. In this work we are told that nothing can change in a man unless he begins to think in a new way. It is also said that this work is to make us think in a new way. Let us consider these two statements so that something of their meaning emerges and administers one or two slaps in the face. You will see that from these statements it follows that the mind must believe the work. That is the first slap in the face. If there is no belief in the work, nothing can happen. That is the second slap. The man or woman will continue to think as they always have and everything will remain the same. It is possible to remain in the work, as the phrase goes, for year after year and not believe it and so remain unchanged in one's way of thinking. This may, at first sight, seem impossible. But if a person has no belief in the work and its authority and its teaching, that person will not undergo any change of mind, and if anyone's ways of thinking remain unaltered, the work cannot act on him or her. That is the point, and that is the meaning of the two statements. Consider the matter more closely, so that it engages your deeper attention and brings you face to some extent with where you are mentally as regards the work. You can see that if a person has no eye with any attraction for or real belief in the work, that person will not be occupied genuinely with what it teaches. One does not seriously occupy one's mind with what one does not believe in. On the other hand, if one believes that a thing is true, one thinks about it, particularly if it closely concerns oneself. Now this work closely concerns oneself. I cannot indeed think of anything that concerns men or women more closely than the teaching of this work. But if they do not believe it, you imagine they will have their minds miraculously changed by it and begin to think in a new way. I should have said not in a new way, but in an entirely new way. Can you see, then, that since nothing can change in us unless we begin to think in a new way, and since this work is to make us eventually think in an entirely new way, unless we believe what it teaches, it can have absolutely no effect on us. Being mind-stuck, we will remain just as we always were. There will be no change of being, because there is no change in thinking. Without change of thought there can be no change of being. A man will remain the same man. The mind, with its former attitudes and habits of thinking, will remain unaltered, and so the rest of the person will remain unaltered. The knowledge taught by the work will not enter the thinking and transform it. The man or woman will not even try to think from the new ideas that the work teaches, and see life and themselves in a new way. They will not try to think from the ideas of the work simply because they do not believe them. They will hear that they have many but not believe it, and so with the other ideas. For instance, they will hear that new knowledge, new being and new understanding are all connected, and that one cannot have new understanding without the other two. But they will not believe it. Now reflect on this carefully. Notice if you have taken in what it means. Do you believe your understanding will remain at its present level if your knowledge does not change, and that your being will not change unless your knowledge changes? I doubt it. But to continue, I may be given the new knowledge contained in the work and often listen to it, but never really believe it. In that case I will not apply the new knowledge to the study of my being. I will make no attempt whatsoever to view the kind of man I am psychologically from the angle of the new knowledge. I will just go on chasing about as usual, pursuing my usual daily interests, running after my fantasies, satisfying my appetites, and voicing my usual daily imbecilities with the utmost complacency. I will not, of course, see anything mechanical in all this. Privately I will laugh the idea to scorn that I am a mechanical man and fast asleep in mind and heart. Now the work is about a possible change inherent in man by creation. You find this difficult to believe? No doubt you do. Well, this change is called psychotransformism. Most psychotransformism begins with transformation of the mind. It begins with metanoia, to use a word in the New Testament, which means change of mind and not repentance. A person, therefore, who does not really believe in the work will experience no transformation of mind, and so will not move internally into a position where changes can be performed by means of the influences of the work. The work will not be received. These influences act first on the mind so as to change the thinking. Otherwise there can be no psychotransformism, no ultimate transformation of the person's whole psychology. There cannot be, simply because when it comes down to brass tacks the person does not believe in the work or derives from it secretly. There will be no change in the mind, and therefore no change can result in the level of being, and therefore no change in the level of understanding. The person may seem externally to change a little. This may be due to example, atmosphere and imitation, or vanity or motives of self-interest. But there will be no internal change, no genuine transformation, nothing so real and intimate that a man, turned and twisted in every direction, time after time, will remain always pointing to the work. The mind, not being awakened by the work, will not awaken the emotional center. The underlying disbelief in the intellectual center will be reflected as dislike and disbelief in the emotional center. That is, self-emotions and not work emotions will remain dominant. Now a man may know this work and not believe it. To know is not to believe. Again, he may teach this work and not believe it. That is quite possible for certain types. He does not deceive himself but deceives others. He may profess to believe, but very many profess Christianity, for instance, and do not believe it. That is why one has at times to observe oneself, and second, how much of one believes the work and what the quality of one's belief is and how many I fight against it. For according to the quality of your belief, so will the work respond and act on you. A man may believe he believes this work and find, by candid uncritical self-observation, that he does not. He sees that he has been deceiving himself. This gives him a good chance to go on. It is a useful shock, as are all moments of sincerity with oneself. It clears away false I that are like parasitic charmers in the mind. A man, or woman, are so very much their inner sincerity in this work. Now I will add only one thing. To believe is to have confidence. To believe in the work is to have confidence in something more than in yourself. To believe in the work is to believe in something greater than oneself. It is to believe in greater mind, that is, in mind greater than your mind. Now mind is invisible. Greater mind is invisible. Your mind is invisible. To believe in greater mind is therefore for one invisible to believe in a greater invisible. You will see that we are now speaking on the psychological level.